Welcome to the Athletic FC podcast with me, Akinwolere. Another week, another clean sheet for Arsenal. That's 3 goals conceded in 9 games. So, does a solid defence win you the league? Here with us for this one, we have James McNicholas. We've also got Adrian Clarke as well. Adrian, Arsenal are top of the Premier League, 4 points ahead of Bournemouth in second. Also an important win for them against Crystal Palace, with Liverpool, Chelsea and also Manchester City dropping points on the weekend.
Yeah, hello guys. It was a big weekend, wasn't it, for Arsenal? They'd seen Liverpool drop points. Obviously played at the same time as City, so they weren't aware of what was going on there. But it was just a game that they had to win to sort of just keep this momentum going. And it was a hard game. I made Mikel Arteta right afterwards when he said, "I value this victory more than any other." I think it was Arsenal's best win of the season, even though it wasn't the best performance of the season. For me, Palace are the best team Arsenal have played. Definitely the best team out of possession. It's so hard to find any space against them. And I thought they did a really good job for most of that game. But thankfully, Arsenal and a set piece made the difference. So, happy days at the moment.
Yeah, James, if you're watching that as a neutral, some might say rather dry of goals. But what were the crowd saying in the stadium? Another win again, but it wasn't that spectacular, surely.
No, but I think given what had happened elsewhere, obviously at Brentford with Liverpool getting beat, given the awareness fans in stands have of the scores elsewhere at games as well, they would have known Villa were beating City. I think everybody in that stadium sensed what a big 3 points this were. And in those final stages, Palace actually exerted a bit of pressure on Arsenal without necessarily creating clear-cut goal-scoring opportunities. But it's quite rare you see Arsenal penned in like that at home, and they were defending with, 5 across the back and having to sort of, really defend stoutly on the edge of their own penalty area. But they did. And what was interesting was seeing the fans really engage with that and really rally round that. I think maybe for the first time in quite a long time, there's almost a kind of an appetite for it among the Arsenal fans, that they recognise that this is part of their identity. And when they get that goal in head, there's this big confidence, I think, in the stadium that they'll be able to see it through. And it was fitting, I thought. George Graham visited the Emirates Stadium yesterday, looking down from up in the director's box. I think he would have been thoroughly pleased with the defending that he saw from both sides, but obviously particularly from Arsenal, who get another clean sheet.
Yeah, Adrian, you mentioned something about Crystal Palace probably being the best team Arsenal have played so far. You look at the table and you look at Bournemouth in second, you look at Sunderland in fourth. I mean, this is quite a strange start to a Premier League season. I know there's still a long way to go, but is it fascinating to look at the teams that are actually currently beneath Arsenal right now in the Premier League?
It's great for the Premier League, isn't it? First and foremost, after a few seasons where things have been probably too predictable, things have sort of been shaken around this time around. I love it. I love seeing Bournemouth and Sunderland up there. I like seeing the promoted teams sort of all super competitive. And from an Arsenal perspective, obviously, I'm quite enjoying the fact that Liverpool are having a bit of a wobble at the moment, and Manchester City are sort of not quite the finished article either, are they? So look, it's all in place, I think, for Arsenal to have a great season, but you've got to calm down. And I think Opta analyst or the supercomputer gave Arsenal a 66% chance of winning the title. There's 29 matches left. I mean, let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. But given the fixtures that Arsenal have had, and they've had some real toughies, I didn't expect it. I don't think Mikel Arteta would have expected to have been sat 4 points clear at the top at this stage. So the players have done ever so well.
Okay, we have to talk about Arsenal's defence, James. Arsenal have conceded just 1 shot on target in their last 3 Premier League games. How hard is it to play against this team?
Very hard. I think Arsenal might even take issue with that statistic because I think it was recorded for an Eddie Nketiah header, which actually was sort of a claim, really, from David Raya. So Arsenal, to my eye at least, have gone through the entire month of October without conceding a shot on target in the Premier League, which is absurd, really, absolutely outstanding. I think something worth mentioning as well is the depth they have there now. I mean, people may not realise, but William Saliba went off at half-time against Crystal Palace, and on came Christian Mosquera, who He's a 21-year-old centre-half, impressed for Spain under-21s in the summer, had been in the Valencia first team for a little bit of time, but not necessarily a great Valencia team. He's been an absolute revelation, really, and has afforded Arsenal the ability to, retain the same style of play when one of Saliba or Gabriel is out. I don't think anyone's saying he is necessarily at their level yet, but he has the same profile. He has the same size, athleticism, calmness on the ball. And then you look at the fullback areas. I mean, Miles Lewis-Skelly has a very good case to be England's first choice left back. At the moment, he's not getting into that Premier League team because Ricardo Calafiori is playing there. Ben White, another outstanding defender, having to play second fiddle to Julian Timber, who may be the informed fullback in the league right now. So they've got outstanding defenders, an outstanding goalkeeper, and also it's an entire team effort. This is not just about the back four. Martin Zubimendi's been a superb addition. The work Declan Rice does, it goes all the way through to the front man. Victor Gyokeres not scored a ton of goals, but no one at Arsenal was questioning his work rate, his application, his commitment. I always remember an ex-pro, it might have been Gary Neville himself, talking about how defending is a culture in a club. And I'm sure Adrian can testify to that from his playing days. And I feel like that is now part of Arsenal's culture, part of Arsenal's identity. They embrace it, they relish it, and they take real pride in it, from the goalkeeper right through to the centre forward.
That's a real good point, isn't it, about the culture, Adrian? Because, Arsenal are conceding an average of 0.33 goals per game currently. If they maintain this form, they'll break the record set by Jose Mourinho's title-winning Chelsea side in 2004-2005. I mean, what's brought that on this season or over the last 3 or 4 seasons? Is it personnel, as James has mentioned? Is it mentality? Is it Gabriel Heinze being absolutely ballistic on the sidelines?
Probably all of the above, really. I mean, first and foremost, they're good players, really good players, depth in each position. But I do think it's a culture. I do think it's a mindset. And the team definitely love defending. All of them love it. And I think about Arsenal probably since the days of George Graham, really. And you wouldn't say that any Arsenal team in the Wenger era up until now, maybe the Invincibles to a point, but I can't remember a team since George Graham that has had such an appetite for clean sheets, for defending, for being resilient. It's what I grew up on, watching Arsenal. It was part of the DNA of Arsenal back then. And I think a lot of supporters are thrilled to see it back, even though it irritates the hell out of everybody else that supports different Premier League clubs. So no, it is a cultural thing. Gyokeres sets the tone with his unbelievable work rate. No centre forward makes more sprints than Victor Gyokeres. No centre forward closes down defenders more frequently than he does, and that sets the tone for the others. But you look at Gabriel and Saliba, best partnership for me in European football, world football. And then you look at the two fullbacks. There aren't two better fullbacks in the Premier League this season. So if you were to pick a team of the year after 9 games, which is ridiculous, you would have Arsenal's back four and the goalkeeper. No one else really would come into the equation. So, it's great. And Arteta, he's come about because Arteta drives up standards year on year. He doesn't settle. It has to be better. Okay, we were good last year, but it has to be better. And if you're not better, you'll be out of the team and somebody else will come in. He's a hard taskmaster, but it's brought about some really good results.
Okay, right, let's move on because we have to talk about the striker, the big man that was brought in to fill Arsenal's void up front, Victor Gyokeres. 5 goals in 13 Arsenal games so far, but he's now gone 5 league matches, Adrian, without a goal. Now I'm watching him in the Champions League against Atletico Madrid and I'm thinking he's making the right moves. He got 2 goals in that match. He looked very hungry. There was a drop of the shoulder at the back end of the game, which looked like he lost his man. Seems to be finding some fluidity there. Why is he doing it in the Champions League, but not necessarily in the Premier League?
Yeah, it's a good point. I think that Premier League defenders are sort of setting up ultra defensively against Arsenal. And that means that if your centre forward is going to be really screened, and I actually think Gyokeres' presence is occupying 2 defenders a lot of the time, and it's helping Saka and it's helping Martinelli. and it's helping the players around because they now no longer can they go, right, if you double mark Bukayo Saka, we've got Arsenal in the bag. They can't say that now. So I do think that his presence in the team helps. I have been, I wouldn't say underwhelmed, but I have been, he's come a little bit short of my expectancy because I saw him last season in the Sporting v Arsenal Champions League game, and he ran Gabriel and Saliba ragged at times in that game. He looked a tour de force, and he hasn't quite had that sharpness or explosiveness in the Premier League game so far. It's just a little bit of an edge missing. But 85-90% of his game I love. I love the work rate. I love the pressing. I love the fact that he's a 60-yard box finisher that will get goals that way this season. I just think he needs to relax a little bit and just take the pressure off himself. He just looks a little bit uptight in Premier League matches at the moment because he's so desperate to score. There was one moment at the end of that game at the weekend against Palace. He comes down the left channel, ducks inside, and I just think, just wrap your boot around it and shoot it into the far corner. And he looks for a pass. And I'm thinking, yeah, his confidence isn't quite where it needs to be. But yeah, I really like him. I like him as a player, and I think Arsenal supporters do as well. And his hold-up play, he's getting better and better each game, looking after possession very, very well. It's just the goals, and hopefully they'll come.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned a Champions League game. I mentioned a Champions League game, and the other game I'm thinking he's played quite well this season again is a Champions League game against Olympiacos, where he's fed right down the middle. He hits the ball, keeper saves it, Martinelli gets a little tap in, James. Not many of us would have watched the Portuguese league last season, I'm thinking, but we saw all the clips of the amazing goals. Is it just an adjustment period? Have you seen enough to think this is a guy that's going to work well with this team if they create the chances for him?
Well, that is quite a big if at the moment. He's not getting a ton of chances. I think, it is hard when you are a kind of last shoulder striker playing against teams who are defending so deep. And there were signs earlier on in the season that Arsenal were going to sort of look to transition a bit more quickly and play a bit more directly to play to his strengths. I feel like that's been perhaps a little bit less evident in the last few weeks. Look, I think he's been a really important signing, even if he's not necessarily always been hugely impressive. And the reason I say that is because Arsenal lost Kai Havertz to a pretty significant injury. He's basically been missing since the start of the season. Gyokeres has given them a focal point, someone who can run in behind, someone who attracts defenders, someone who is a threat. For much of last season, they didn't have that. Did not have an alternative to Havertz. They were using Mikel Merino, Leandro Trossard. Gabriel Jesus was obviously sidelined from January. He's actually been essential. I kind of worry for Arsenal where they would be if they hadn't bought him. Now, has he been as good as Arsenal fans hoped? I'd say probably not so far. He scored in 2 of 9 Premier League games. I think he himself will be a bit frustrated by that. I'm curious to see how it develops. I think one factor to consider is he arrived looking like a player who'd missed quite a big chunk of pre-season, to me anyway, which he had in Portugal. Obviously, he was in dispute with the club. He comes over and it felt always a bit like he was slightly playing catch-up, and he's had to play an awful lot of minutes because, as I say, he's the only obvious true number 9 in the squad. And I do wonder if the sort of demands of that may be taking their toll on him. I'm sure this is a more physically demanding league, a more physically intense league than what he's accustomed to. And I'm sure that Mikel Arteta will be asking more of him tactically, defensively, than he is perhaps used to. And I do wonder if there's a kind of cumulative effect of that. Arsenal play in the Carabao Cup this midweek. I think they've got to take the option to rest him. I really do. They've got 3 away games coming up following that, in which there'll be a huge demands on him. I think he would benefit actually from coming out of the side for that cup game and having a bit of rest, because he just looks to me, I agree with Adrian, like he's just missing that explosiveness that characterised so much of his time with Sporting.
But who would you put in place when there's no recognised striker? But also, there's also the theory that perhaps he just needs more game time to understand how this team plays, how fluid he can be with it, the movement. They get used to his movement on the field. I mean, it's quite a conundrum because Arsenal are actually struggling when it comes to, I guess, that number 9 position, James.
Yeah. I mean, he's had plenty of game time. I'm not worried about that. I do think that I'm really, really, really excited and interested to see Kai Havertz come back into this squad.
Yeah.
And those two players share that burden. I keep thinking about, imagine you start with one with all the physical intensity that they can offer you, and they do an hour or 20 or 65, 70 minutes, and then you bring the other guy on. I think for a central defender, either of those players would be an absolute nightmare in that scenario. And I think when they're rotating and when they're sharing games, I think that's when we'll really see the benefit. In terms of what I would do in the short term, look, Arsenal have shown before, they beat Real Madrid with Mikel Merino playing up front. They've got Leandro Trossard. I'm also really curious, just on a personal level, to see Gabriel Martinelli given a run there. He's been so dangerous this season, running in behind, and his finishing's been much better. So I think they can, especially for a Carabao Cup game, which, while they want to win, is not top of their agenda, I think they can make do without. But yeah, I'm really fascinated to see how Mikel Arteta balances and manages the pair of Havertz and Gyokeres when he has both available. He spoke last week about the possibility of them even playing together. So I'm really curious to see how that pans out.
Yeah, how do you see that one playing out, Adrian? Because there's a thought here that if Havertz started the season fit, that the pressure on Gyokeres might not be as much as we're asking for him. They could interchange or, as James has just mentioned, play together.
I think the way that Gyokeres plays means that he would be much more effective if he didn't have to play 90 minutes each week.
Yeah.
Because it's all about explosiveness. It's all about high intensity running. And I do think that Havertz will start a lot of games when he's fit and available, and then to bring on Gyokeres either with him or in place of, when defenders are tiring, you've suddenly got this guy that's going to sprint down the side of you. Every time Arsenal have possession of the ball, that's quite exciting. So I'd love to see moments where they'll play together. Unfortunately, I think the moments where they'll play together are when Arsenal are chasing the game. If they're behind or they're level and they're desperate to get the winning goal, that might be when we see the pair of them together. But yeah, Gyokeres will be fine, I think. But yeah, it hasn't been quite as brilliant as anticipated, I guess.
Well, a big weekend for Arsenal with Liverpool, Manchester City and also Chelsea losing. Mikel Arteta's side are currently 6 points ahead of City, 7 points ahead of Liverpool and 8 points ahead of Chelsea. Now, that's 4 consecutive Premier League defeats for Liverpool. We currently can't write them off, surely, Adrian, because, we've been here before, especially from an Arsenal perspective. You remember the 23 season, miles ahead of Manchester City, and guess what the inevitable was? Manchester City ended up winning the league. Let's keep an eye on Liverpool. Let's keep an eye on Manchester City as well.
Oh, yeah. Then it's not over. It's absolutely not over, because both those teams, Liverpool and Manchester City, have enough quality to string 10 consecutive wins on the bounce, don't they? They just do. I think both have issues to a point. Obviously, Liverpool's is balance. There's balance of the team. They're still searching for it. They don't really know how to fit everybody in, how to get the best out of Salah with all these new signings around him. So I think it's just been so much change at once that they don't feel like a team. They don't look like a team. They don't look like a cohesive unit at the moment. But that will come, surely. It has to. But there's some tough decisions, I think, for Arne Slot to make in the coming weeks. He's going to have to leave out some big names, and how he manages that within the environment is going to be really important. And for City, what happens if Erling Haaland gets injured for any length of time? That would be my question. Very reliant on him. I do think they're better this season without the ball, but I still don't think they're as good without the ball as they used to be. And that, I think, is going to be a bit of a problem in terms of stringing those consistent win, after one another. I just see them dropping points because they're still not quite there.
Yeah. James, should Arsenal fans be cautious at this point and look at the table and not get too excited still?
Well, they certainly will be cautious. I think because it's been so long since they won a league title, and because, as you alluded to, there's a bit of trauma there with, leading from the front and not necessarily getting over the line. However, I would say to them as well, they should be cautiously optimistic because the picture looks very good for them. If you were taking a slice out of the Premier League right now and looking at every team and analysing them, I can understand the sentiment that you would make Arsenal favourites because they're a very, very impressive outfit, a very serious outfit. And I think really what gives me the most confidence really in their capacity to do it this season is the difficulty of the fixtures that Adrian mentioned. They've been to Old Trafford, they've been to Anfield, they've been to St James's Park, they've hosted Man City already, and they've still got themselves a lead. And also the players they've been without. I think in previous years, if I told you that in their opening 9 or 10 games, Arsenal would have periods without Havertz, Odegaard, Bukayo Saka, Saka's immediate backup in Madueke, Saliba might miss games. I think you would have been very concerned. And the fact that they've been able to kind of ride that fairly seamlessly, to me, shows you the depth that they've got and the quality they've got in the squad now, which they've never really had to this degree before. This is the deepest Arsenal squad, I think, in my memory, in my time as a fan, because, there's more games now than ever before, and they've got a squad equipped for that. Even the great title winnings of the teams of the past didn't have 25 players of this calibre. I think they're in a really strong position, but there's always going to be that caution, that carefulness, and I totally understand it because there's an awful long way to go. I think especially once we get into the second half of the season, especially if there is that pressure and that expectation that they go on to do it, that will create something of its own for them to contend with as well, a challenge of its own. So we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah. What's been interesting, Adrian, is Liverpool. And I don't know many people that would have predicted where Liverpool are currently. I mean, it's still only a handful of games, but where they are currently isn't the Liverpool we're used to seeing, especially from last season.
No one can persuade me that Liverpool's season's over. It's not. They're definitely too good for that to be the case. And I think of all the teams that are around, I know the Bournemouth are second at the moment, Sunderland are right up there. I think Arteta and Arsenal will be looking at Liverpool's results first every single weekend because I think they remain the biggest threat.
Yeah, it's so hard. I put something on X yesterday just saying, imagine if this is how the league ends up come May, with Sunderland in the Champions League.
I mean, it would be hilarious.
As well, it would be absolutely hilarious. But, I mean, James, you can't ignore the big players, Chelsea, City, Liverpool to a certain degree. When you're looking at the table now and the way it consists, who do you think the biggest pushers are for Arsenal in terms of that title challenge?
I still think Liverpool and City, with the greatest respect to what the likes of Bournemouth and Sunderland are doing, because it's an outstanding. And I think one thing that's really interesting is actually how your perception of a fixture list shifts according to teams' performance. Arsenal have got games coming up. They've got a trip to Sunderland, for example, in a week or so's time. A few weeks ago, they might have felt pretty positive about that, but now that looks quite daunting. A reunion with their former captain Granit Xhaka against an informed Sunderland side who don't concede a lot of goals themselves, very physical as well. So that becomes interesting. A North London derby, which is not too far around the corner, I think starts to look a really interesting proposition. I mean, Spurs did their best Arsenal impersonation as far as I could see at Everton yesterday. A couple of goals off set pieces, and they look a much more serious outfit this time around. So. But I think despite all that, I think you look at the quality of players at City and Liverpool's disposal, you look at the managers, the fact they've been there and done it before, I still think those are the first results Arsenal supporters are going to be looking for every weekend.
Yeah, what about the other team in red in Manchester, Adrian? Manchester United, bit of a resurgence at the moment.
Yeah, no, not in the title conversation, no, I'm not having that. I mean, you can't go from being in the kind of sort of crisis that they were to challenging for the title, but there are signs that they're gonna obviously improve. And Amrim's got better players, with Cunha and Mbeumo. I think they've both settled in pretty well, actually. I'm just not convinced. The Bruno Fernandes in central midfield, I know that it's been better the last couple of games. I just don't think without the ball, United are good enough. They don't track runners well enough. But yeah, they're going to be tougher to beat this season. They will get more points. They'll be in the race for Europe, but no, they're not. They're not at the same level, I don't think, as Arsenal, Liverpool, or City.
All right, we've got a little game for you now, gents. I'd like you to name Arsenal's last 9 goal scorers this season. Adrian, you start.
Eza.
Okay, definitely, James.
Trossard.
Yes. Adrian.
Saka.
Yeah.
I'm under pressure now.
All right. James.
Well, Gabriel feels like a safe bet.
Yeah, good shout. Okay, Adrian.
Who haven't we mentioned? Martinelli.
Yes. Okay, I'll give you that one. Good.
He's on there. Okay. Their last 9 goals. See, I can't count well enough. I can't work out that far back.
I mean, we've just been talking about one, but
Okay, Victor Gyokeres, is he on there?
There we go. Well done, James. Well, smart.
Oh man, who's been scoring last 9 scorers? Played
up front against Real Madrid.
Merino.
Yes. James.
Timber?
No.
He's just not in there. He did get a brace earlier in the season.
New midfielder.
New midfielder Zubimendi. There you go.
Yes, and one more, Adrian. Like you can't. Great work rate. Potential future captain.
Sure, yeah. England.
Come on, Adrian.
Right? Declan Rice.
Yes!
Yeah.
We got there in the end with a little massaging and a bit of help, but well done, gents. All right, let's finish on this. Of the 33 sides to win the Premier League, only 6 have won it while conceding the fewest goals and not scoring the most. So does defence, gents, actually win you titles? What are you saying, Adrian?
I think goals are more important than goals conceded, if truth be told. If you finish as top scorers, you're more likely to win the league than if you finish with the best defence. That's what recent history tells you. I'm certain that Arsenal will finish this season with the best defensive record. I don't think anyone can match what they're going to produce. But they're not going to be far away from being top scorers. Trust me, these fixtures have been hard. Really hard fixtures. They're learning how to play against teams that don't want to be ambitious against them. They're learning about Gyokeres. They've had a lot of attacking players, Arsenal, missing. I think if that tide turns and you get the players returning, the fluency develops. I'm really confident, actually, that Arsenal can also finish as top scorers this year.
James, 1-0 through the season. It's not going to be great for the fans, but if the defence is solid and they're getting 3 points, can you blame them?
Listen, 1-0 to the Arsenal is a pretty popular chant at the Emirates Stadium. I don't think there'll be too many complaints. I think, listen, if you can keep 38 clean sheets, but if you don't score a goal, you might go down. That's the reality, in pure points terms. So, of course, goals are hugely important. And actually, I think if we go back and we look at Arsenal over the last few years, them being good at set pieces is nothing new necessarily, but you do tend to see peaks and troughs in terms of a bit of variance in terms of sort of how they work, and maybe teams get wise to what you're doing and you're forced to readapt and change again. So I'm not sure they'll continue to score at quite this rate on the dead balls. I think, as I said earlier, it's got to be evened out by the open play. I think there are different ways you can do that. They've obviously got Odegaard's creativity to come back. I think when they get Havertz and Odegaard back, they might start winning the ball a bit higher up the pitch as well. They had a lot in the press, those two. That could create turnovers and goal-scoring chances. Listen, if we're sat here in a few months' time and Arsenal have won the league, it will be because they've scored a ton of goals as well as having a very secure defence.
Okay, gents, let's leave it there. Adrian, James, appreciate your time, and also thank you guys for watching as well. If you're enjoying the podcast, make sure you subscribe to the channel and also leave us a cheeky comment as well. We're back soon. For more from the Athletic FC podcast, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. We've got top journalists like David Ornstein, Matt Slater, Adam Crafton, Carl Anker, and plenty more through the entire season. Make sure you don't miss an episode of the Athletic FC. You can get it wherever you get your podcasts from.